started out as a concert work. I was just planning this concert work. And then Kelly, she contacted me and said, hey, I hear you're working on a Salt Lake artwork. I also work on similar things. So we met and Kelly agreed to do some video art for the first performance of my concert work. And one thing led to another, and she started proposing this idea of an installation version here at the Dumke Plaza.
Part of Carey's composition is improvised. The musicians can take different amounts of time. So the video that I created had to be adaptable, and I actually VJ'd during the performance. We actually worked really closely through the development of the video. I brought in these dirty diamond crystals, and Carey responded to them and adapted the sound for the performance, and we recorded video together in the studio. While we pulled this together, I had this vision to create these sculptures and develop an entire environment around the dirty diamonds themselves. We made a proposal to the Dumke Plaza, and that's how we got to where we are today. We chose to model the sculptures after these selenite crystals, which are this really unique phenomenon of the lake. They actually only occur in one other place in the world that we know of. It's in the salt flats in Oklahoma. They are increasing. They're becoming more abundant as the lake bed recedes, because the clay where the lake once was is like it propagates then because of the gypsum that's in the clay, and also the water pressure of what remains in the kind of clay bed and the previous lake bed. And so for me, they've really become this metaphor. There are these really beautiful artifacts of loss. As the lake recedes, there are these kind of remembrances or tombstones. And Dr. Bonnie Baxter actually has been researching these and has found that the crystals, because they form so rapidly, which in geological terms is 50 years, they encapsulate clay, which is where they get the name dirty from. And the clay inside of them holds microbes that continue to live and build worlds.
In all, the idea is to make the familiar unfamiliar. And in doing that, we sort of shift our relationship with the world as we know it. And part of the impetus behind this whole project is to shift people's perspective in terms of how they relate to their environment. When I started working on the concert piece back in 2023, it was finished in 2024. When I started working on the concert piece, the initial kind of drive behind it was what I was reading about the lake and how the lake was drying up, and there were going to be these huge environmental consequences. And I noticed that cultural attention span can be kind of short. And if we had a rainy day, then everyone's like, oh, okay, the lake's going to be fine. But in fact, we need to learn to think in geological time. And that, of course, involves displacing ourselves, creating another sense of time. But it was really that idea of, oh wow, the lake is going to collapse. This, if the lake dries up, this whole ecosystem is going to collapse. And my own experience of the lake prior to that had just been, oh look, it's a pretty lake. It's interesting, but yeah, okay, cool. But then I started reading about what would happen if the lake dried up. And that's what led me to realize how important it is for wildlife, for humans, for the air quality, for all of these things. And all of that is embedded throughout my concert piece. as well. Somewhat abstractly sometimes, but it's there.
In my work in general, I'm really interested in bridging the relationship that we have to the earth and the planet and the environment that we live in with the kind of data and the scientific information that's really hard to understand and comprehend. And so for me, what I'm really interested in doing is creating an opportunity for the audience, the viewer, the public to come in and experience, sometimes through a metaphor like the crystals, what rapid change is happening in geological terms. And that kind of shifting of the time frame that Carey's mentioning is really important, because in our day-to-day life, climate change or the disappearance of the lake feels kind of static and like a far-off issue. But if we change our lens and look at it in a geological perspective, it's rapid and it's alarming, and it's an emergency situation that will make potentially the city that we live in unlivable in the next 10, 15 years. But we just think in these kind of daily perspectives. And so that perspective shift is really essential. We had about 10 weeks to build the sculptures last summer. We took over the sculpture lab at Weber State. I had 3 students work with me, and they all had really distinct roles. So Max Richmond took these 3D models that were really rudimentary that I created, and he adapted them in Blender and created the crystals, and then figured out what the facades would be. Then we laser cut the facades, the kind of planes of the crystals, assembled them together, and coated that in resin to really give them the look that they have. I had Xanthi Harris, who is another Weber State student. She's an art student, and she did a lot of R&D on the crystal surfacing and how to get them to really kind of have the right aesthetic. I had another student, August Roth, who's also an art student. She did all the welding on the project. And meanwhile, Max was going in and doing R&D and developing a specific kind of concrete. The concrete on the sculptures is only 1 to 2 inches thick, which is really thin. And we needed to do it that way so that they could be hollow and strong and be able to be transported down to the plaza. So we developed our own mix and did all sorts of experiments just to get the material right. We started with a welded frame, put chicken wire over it, put the concrete on that, and then did this kind of textured surfacing concrete so it could crack and have all the different variation in it. And we put the crystals, once they were assembled, inside of that and finished the whole thing. These are living ecosystems that are encapsulated inside of the crystals that I think of as this kind of metaphorical escape pod. Like the lake is kind of trying to capture what it has as it rapidly diminishes.
In the natural world, these things are really small. They're about the size of your pinky. And so by blowing them up to a 6-foot, 8-foot tall sculpture, this massive scale, we're inviting the kind of perspective shift that we've been talking about. All of a sudden, we become the small one. And I think that it invites further contemplation on sort of our place on this earth.
And the content that we're talking about in This Was Water is the evaporation of the lake, which is something that's always in flux. And so having an environment that's also always changing just feels right.
Yeah, we wanted to create a space, not just something to look at, but a space in which people can inhabit, at least for as long as they're here. And creating that space, of course, means creating sound, creating lights, creating interaction. And I think that that's one of the strongest and funnest things about this particular installation is the idea that it's as if It's as if the crystal sculptures are aware of our presence.